Hello and welcome to the Last Word on Spurs. We are your multi-award winning Tottenham Hotspur podcast. And my God, is it holiday time yet or what? What a season. What a season. If it was the very, very first time, you can find us on iTunes, we're on Spotify, we're across all major audio platforms. We're, of course, on X, we're on Instagram, and we're on Blue Sky too. Thank you so much for joining us. If you say you're with us for the first time, keep liking, keep subscribing in these difficult times of being a Tottenham fan. We are back with you, which feels like for our sins at the moment, as Spurs will have to overturn a 1-0 deficit if they are to progress in the Europa League round of 16 to get past AZ Alkmaar after that 1-0 defeat. There was more bad news too late on with the news that Dominic Solanke was forced off with an injury upon his return to the side. Look, quite frankly, same old Spurs, same kind of performances, same excuses. I think I know a lot of people are just kind of tired of looking and choosing for someone to blame. It does have that feeling as many know out there, and nothing will really change until there is change at the very, very top of this football club. So why should we be surprised? Let's get into the match, the facts and the stats before we bring in our wonderful panel that are going to guide and steer you through yet another therapy session here on Last Word on Spurs. It did finish AZ Alkmaar 1, Tottenham Hotspur 0. Shots-wise, 12 shots for AZ Alkmaar to Spurs is 7. 5 shots on target to AZ Alkmaar to Spurs is 1, which came on the 87th minute of the game. 29 touches in Tottenham's box to the 12 from Tottenham's perspective. 30 tackles to the 19 in favour of AZ. Spurs, the busier out of the two sides in terms of clearances, 40 to 19. Keeper saves, the AZ keeper busier of the two goalkeepers, 3-1. I say I made a mistake there. My apologies. No, Vicario, the busier of the goalkeepers by 3-1. In terms of big chances missed, AZ, you'd say, missed 4 big chances in the game to Tottenham 0. And whilst Tottenham dominated the possession of 61 to 39, AZ Alkmaar were 1.72 in terms of their XG to Tottenham's 0.48. A really, really poor display from Tottenham in arguably their biggest game of the season. I said to Adam Osper off air, we've got away with it until now in terms of him coming on. We can't get away from it. I mean, Ads will bring you in. Look, 8 days Tottenham had to prepare for this game. Meanwhile, AZ Alkmaar played twice during that period. I said it during the show that Tottenham, they mounted their first shot on target in the 87th minute of the game. Look, I'll try and pick my words as carefully as I can, but that was such a pathetic performance in such an important game that if we're going to be honest about it, look, we should have lost by more than 1 goal. For Tottenham, that is our 18th defeat of the season in all competitions. And the only real positive I can take is that we're lucky we only lost by the odd goal. It should have been more. And luckily, there is still a second leg because I'll be honest with you, if that was a first leg game, we'd be well and truly out of it. I mean, Ad, give me your feelings on a fan that I'd like to feel with you always. You're a fairly moderate fan. What are we seeing at the moment with Tottenham in these cup games?
Thanks for having me on. I think you're right. There's a single positive from tonight, and the single positive is we are not out of the tie. That's the only positive that you can take out of it. The bit that worried me the most watching the whole game was, we're not doing anything. Like, even when we were maybe, when Andrew's getting criticised for being too gung ho, you look at us now, and we're in that period. The fullbacks played high and inverted, and we were scoring goals with that sort of cross to the back post, someone coming in, sort of fast break tempo pressing. And now I watch us, and there's just sort of nothing, just complete nothing. And I look at the front three, and they offer nothing. I'm sort of prepared to give Tell a bit of chance because I think he needs to play with Solanke and play maybe off the left with him, and he's coming into a team that is struggling. But Son offers little. If Johnson doesn't score, he offers nothing. And then you go back and look at the midfield and you're like, okay, Bentancur, I like Bentancur. He's a nice, tidy player, but he doesn't really play with tempo. I thought Bergvall was the only outfield player that played well. Maddison, bar Man City away, I don't think has played well since the beginning of last season. And that's the outfield, and you're like, it's just a bit of a nothing sort of team, no real, is it, and the injuries can't be used as an excuse anymore. You said that they've played, they had 8 days off. He rested players against Man City. And that's the big worry. And I suppose I've said this a few times when I've been on, and I think it's sort of the worry. And we mentioned it during the game, Ricky, when we were texting, and we said, like in the big games, we go missing. And you just think when we get spoken about, we're going to win this cup, we can win this. I don't see this team, if it gets through this tie, in a big game, turning up, and if we went all the way, we could end up playing Man United in the final. We've beaten them 3 times this season already. I was thinking about this. So it's likely the law of averages say that if we did get to the final and play them, we'd lose. And for however crap Man United have been, they have players who do have experience and have turned up in really big games when it's mattered. If you look at the FA Cup last season, so that would be my biggest concern. And it was just everyone's been saying all eggs have been in the Europa basket, and it was just so limp tonight, so limp.
It was such a limp performance from Tottenham, and I think you said it so well, Ad, that we've been here so many times before in the manner of these what we call big crunch games for Tottenham, and whether it's through a mental block, whether it's through instructions from the manager that aren't getting through to the players, wherever it is, we are really failing to turn up in what are being billed as the big games of our season as fans. And they should be for the players. And my worry is that, look, it's not, as I've always said, down to one person where we are with Tottenham right now. It's a magnitude of things. It starts for me from the very, very top in terms of that mentality. And then it seeps downwards. You're right to answer questions about where we are in relation to the manager's tactics, in regards to his approach. But I think you've also got to look at the players as well. For the players, for those out there, they are competing arguably what for them should be the biggest game of their season. I also look at the players and think there should be a sense of responsibility that when you cross that white line, you should be giving absolutely everything. And I had my say on the first half, and I didn't see us winning enough first balls, second balls, challenging, competing. And that's one thing I'll never stand for, right? Look, we're Tottenham fans. I think we can all honestly say now, we can accept losing because we've been used to losing. What I can't accept, in my opinion, is a lack of effort, commitment, and desire when it comes to winning the ball, when it comes to trying. And that's my worry right now. And, many might argue, is it the manager that's not getting the best out of the players? I'm happy to come on to that as well. But the fact of the matter is, Pat, it was such a flat Spurs performance that it took us the 87th, 88th minute for our first shot on target. And even that was a miscue. And this Tottenham side, really throughout the season, they've just been breaking all sorts of wrong records. AZ, they register a first win over an English side in 12 attempts. And rightly, they should celebrate at full time because that's a big scout for them. I know they've had a really good home record, which we'll come on to this season. They've won 10 of their last 11 home games. That's including Rangers and Galatasaray. I'm not sure if we underestimate these sides. Pat, there's so much to discuss. But on the game itself, what do you make of that performance, Pat?
Pathetic, limp, lackluster, spineless, brain dead. Just like basically just poor, like really poor. The players just look like they don't know what they're doing. The manager looks like he doesn't know what he's doing. Like you just shown a picture of Son and Maddison sitting there, literally, head in hands, just looking lost. And those are two of our biggest performers, big game players, people that,
Allegedly.
the fans,
Allegedly.
Yeah, fans come and see these guys. They're on mega wages. They're superstars, talented footballers with the world at their feet. But when push comes to shove and it's crunch time, these guys again were missing. And it's just the same throughout the team. Other than Vicario had an excellent game. The funny thing is, Vicario was a scapegoat for a long time, but he's a brilliant goalkeeper. I think for me, he's one of the world's best goalkeepers. And there isn't a lot of good keepers out there. And if we're not careful and we keep playing the way we're playing, the big boys will come sniffing. Because when you look down or the line of all the goalkeepers that are out there, there's not many that are literally as commanding and as good as a shot stopper, reflex saves. Pretty much he's got all the attributes you'd want from a keeper. He's a very good keeper, and we've missed him massively. And today he kept us in the tie. If it wasn't for Vicario, we lose that 3 or 4-0, and that's not even an exaggeration. I don't remember us testing their goalkeeper, so that's the first one. Secondly, like you said, Ricky, our first shot on target came in like the 87th, 88th minute, and it wasn't even a save that the keeper really had to make. We created no clear-cut chances. They had about 7 corners to our 2 chances or 2 corners. Our XG was pathetic. It's like 0.42 as opposed to theirs, which is almost at 2. How many touches in the opposition box did we have? Hardly any. We just weren't a threat whatsoever. And I just wonder what's going on. I wonder what's going on with the substitutions as well. Brennan Johnson was awful yet again, and the guy plays literally the whole game. I just don't get what's going through the players' minds and the manager's mind. Is the manager getting these guys up for big games? That's another debate. We go into this competition or this round of 16 as favourites. Like, make of that what you will. And today we were awful, man. And of course, yeah, we're still in a tie. You know, you don't want to go too crazy. But if you look at every single game we played this season, and then, you know, you pretty much factor in how we're probably going to set up and play at home, it is worrying. I thought today we would come out and smash these guys. I was putting it on my Twitter and my social media that I was really looking forward to this game. This is where our season starts.
I was wondering, Pat, what gave you the confidence to think that?
Yeah, I just thought, you know what, with everything that's happened and the players coming back, and it was time for a new, you know, mindset. And I genuinely thought that these guys would be up for it. And I didn't see anything. And of course, you can lose any game of football. I get that. But the way we lost today, we didn't even try. Do you know what I mean? And it shades of the Liverpool away defeat in the second round of the Carabao Cup, where we ended up losing 4-0, 4-1 on aggregate. It kind of gave me that feeling. Obviously, Liverpool are 10 times better, so you know naturally you're going to get smashed if you play like that. But we just weren't good, man. And we gave away a lot of good chances, and yeah, it is worrying. I do worry. You know, it's do or die for me. It's pretty much Europa or bust. But it looks like the manager again, someone who I've never had any confidence in, almost 2 years in, it looks like he's not learned anything. You know, and I'm not even here to be super critical of Ange. It's not really about that. But I just look at him and what is he showing us where he's improved as a manager? What is he showing us that he's improved as a tactician? What is he showing us where he's improved as his in-game management? These are just genuine questions that I'm throwing out to everyone. I don't see any of that.
Listen, I think you're fair to ask those questions where we are right now, a second season under him, where, you know, it's being built, as you said there, Pat, where quite frankly it now is Europa League or bust. And the fact, again, we saw, and we actually spoke about it in the green room, actually, Adam brought it up, the fact that we made those changes against City to preserve having the squad as ready as they could be for this Europa League round of 16 game. And then when you see a performance like that, you almost think, well, what was the point of making those changes for the City game? I mean, Miles, to bring you in, unfortunately, you have been in with me all season. That's probably why he looks the way he looks. No offense, Miles. We're aging you by the week over here, I tell you. Look, I made that point. You know, this is an AZ side. I think I said AZ, which might have wound some out. An AZ side that they have won 10 of their last 11 home games, and that was including against the likes of Rangers and Galatasaray. So, you know, it was never going to be an easy game for Tottenham. But with all due respect, when you analyse the opposition in comparison to the calibre of players that we've got, and you compare it to them, and maybe people will laugh at that when I say that, when I compare the players. But, you know, we have to be honest and say that we are very, very fortunate to still be in this tie. And many might laugh, but we are still in the tie. It is only 1-0. And the reality is that tie is still capable of being turned around at home. But that was such a worrying display where, again, we've said this on a number of occasions, when it comes to the big crunch games with Tottenham, it's either mentality, it's either players not being tuned into what their jobs are. We simply don't show up. And I think Pat is right. On a different night, if it wasn't for Vicario, that could have been a 3-4-0 scoreline. To have to wait until the 87th minute mark to have a shot on target when, with all due respect, I mentioned it in the intro, AZ have played twice since we've last played. They've had an 8-day rest. I mean, How do you surmise what we've just seen there, Miles, in terms of a performance? Can I even call it a performance?
I just think everyone forgot who they supported tonight. Now, in all seriousness, I know we've had 8 days off, but we're 13th in the Premier League for a reason. Let's go back to your intro. Some of the things you were saying, gutless and spineless and not being able to play, this is not new. This is what's been happening all season. So I get why people are mad, but I'm in the situation going, this is typical Tottenham. This is what we've seen all season. Why do we think? Did we all get suckered in because he rested Spence and Son and Kulu, who's now injured, against Manchester City, thinking he was going to do any better? No, the players you can clearly see are just, I don't know what it is. They're just not playing. I don't know if it's not playing for him. They just don't get it. I think from this picture,
body language is massive, isn't it? Body language of players, the way they're looking.
Maddison, if you that picture of Maddison and Son where they were talking, I think Maddison says, and don't quote me on this, this is just lip reading. It's the same old thing. We're just doing the same. It doesn't change. As you just said then with Adam and comparing the subs last week, it feels like, and I'm going to quote Adam what he said behind. It seems like there's a script and Ange won't change. He doesn't see the in game because the fact he watched Doku against Trent and didn't think, oh, I'm going to be putting Porro up against him, and then tonight I just didn't get what he was trying to do. And this is not just tonight. This is just the whole season. And the players, the manager, the coaching, everything is just wrong. And I think we all just got sucked in because all we've been told is a week's rest, a week's rest, a week's rest.
We've also had 8 days rest from it as well. That might be what it is as well, Miles. We've also had 8 days
and that's the biggest issue because we all had a lovely weekend. Everyone had a lovely weekend.
Stress-free.
Because Spurs didn't play. Yeah. So it was like, everyone was like, yeah, okay, getting themselves up. I just forgot who we supported. And that's why I'm sitting here. I'm not going to sit there and be completely mad about the situation because from what I've seen all season and what I've been saying, it is literally the same old problems. And the fact people are looking at semi-finals and quarterfinals in the next round, I'm worried. I'm worried about what we're going to do at home because, yeah, we might turn up, but then we've got to go and play probably in Ajax or Frankfurt, and we're probably going to put in the same silly performance. Vicario, as Patrick said, I'm going to apologise because I was one of them stupid people that thought Kingski was, I came in, done well. But that's because I saw Foster for the last 6 weeks or 8 weeks. And I was like, you know what? I've forgotten. But no, Vicario tonight nearly pulled off an Alisson. That's how good he was tonight.
It was some unbelievable saves in there. Was from him.
He's been brilliant since he's come back. He's been brilliant.
He's been absolutely brilliant. And I'm like, but what have we conceded again from tonight? A corner, which wasn't dealt with properly. And I just felt so sorry for Berg. I felt sorry for him because when I look at that whole game, him and Vicario, they're probably the only 2 players that came out there and I went, at least they're trying. At least they're trying to do something. They're trying to change this game. Everyone else on that pitch.
You know what? Fair play to Spence. I thought Spence was good as well. Spence was driving with the ball. He was doing. He wasn't as good as he usually is, but he was still quite good. Yeah, he was still quite good.
He got caught into the Spurs trap, I thought, tonight. And I love Spence. I love Spence to pieces. But I just thought even he got caught out a bit tonight. I thought he was better when he went left back. Oh my God, I won't even get into him. I thought he was really, really poor. Danso was okay-ish. Archie Gray, again, don't really know. But look, I'm gonna be in all seriousness now. Spurs, look, as Spurs fans, we've got to realise this season, a lot of us want it to end. And the fact that we all thought that he was going to go into the Europa League and do any better, I don't get it. I've seen what everyone's been saying online, and I'm just kind of looking at going, have we forgotten who we are? Have we forgotten that we are Tottenham Hotspur? Have we forgotten the way we went out to Villa, the way we went out to Liverpool? This is another cup game, and you just saw it tonight. We might, and even when we played Alkmaar at home, we wasn't actually that great. We won by a penalty. So I don't know where people started to get this confidence. And I blame Patrick for that, for his tweet. He should never tweet stuff like that. Come on, we're Spurs. And I know you got people like, look, we're behind our team. We'll support them no matter what. But that performance is nothing new from what we've seen this season. So I'm not going to sit there and be completely mad about it as everyone else is, because it's stuff that we've been coming on every week, Ricky, and it's stuff we've seen clearly week by week by week. Yeah. The fact that that Leicester game will always go down as the worst performance we had this season. It's worse than tonight. And that was against a rubbish Leicester side. Well, at least with Alkmaar, it was at least they showed a bit of fight and they showed a bit of, You know, there was a bit more quality about them, even though we were crap. But at least we know we've got another level that we can kind of produce next week. It's just whether they're going to go out and do it. This is the issue.
I think the thing is, though, I mean, Miles, a lot of fans, you know, I don't want to generalise. Obviously, we know where we are with regards to Ange Postecoglou. We're going to come on to Ange in a bit more detail very, very soon. There's a lot of Spurs fans out there that have been pretty much waiting to reserve their judgment on Ange Postecoglou until he gets his players back, right? I mean, that's the reality. There's some that have been willing to reserve their judgment. There's a huge amount of Spurs fans that have felt for a very, very long time this isn't working and had needed to be changed. But the reality is that, as we have seen throughout the course of the season, Tottenham have had no backup plan. They've had no alternative. They've had no interim lined up. And with all due respect, I think, as you've seen now with Tottenham are at the state of a football club, there doesn't seem to be a lot of pre-planning behind the scenes when it comes to anything, when it comes to signings, when it comes to anything with regards to the manager. And look, it is only 1-0. So we have to remind ourselves that it is only 1-0. I think what is getting a lot of fans down is that it's the manner of the performance of it, although it is only 1-0. But I think the problem is that you will look back at the games like earlier in the season against Liverpool, against Aston Villa, which granted, I will say, during that period, that was in that 9 to 12 week period where we had 13, 14, 15 senior players out. So maybe there was a right at that point there to not launch a real staunch judgment on Ange Postecoglou. Maybe now is the time between here and the rest of the season to make a judgment, because there is no arguments now. There is no excuses now. He has got back the bulk of all of his squad. And the question I think it comes down to is whether the manager is getting the absolute maximum out of the squad. I'm going to come to ask Adam that in a second. But before I do, we're going to bring in the comments of Ange Postecoglou, who has been speaking after the game to the press, where he said, look, it wasn't great from us, pretty much in all facets of the game. We really didn't get to grips with any part of it. We struggled to gain any momentum with the ball. We weren't as aggressive when we needed to be with the ball. It was a tricky service. But having said that, we kind of knew that from yesterday. And yeah, we just didn't simply tackle it well enough in terms of the game. That allowed AZ to get into a rhythm, which when you're playing away from home, it's difficult to turn the tide. And was asked, why were the players seemingly not up for the game as it appeared? He said, look, it's a combination of things, but we'll analyse that and we'll have a look at the areas where we've struggled in. But yeah, it's fair to say that we were nowhere near the level that we needed to be. Ange Postecoglou was asked after the game about Dominic Solanke, which for those that missed it, did pull up with what looked like to be an injury, and said, I'm not actually sure at this stage how bad it is. It looks like a knock. I haven't really seen it. Hopefully, it's nothing too bad. He was again pressed on the fact that given the stakes and the state of the season, why did we see that lack of effort and attitude? And Ange Postecoglou said, I don't think it's a matter of effort or attitude. I don't think it's going out there and not trying. But like I said, we didn't really get to grips and have the right mindset to tackle an away fixture in Europe. It's always tough. And we've obviously conceded the first goal, which is disappointing. And the set of events, but even after that, we didn't really settle down into the game. You are going to have to face some pressure when you play away from home in Europe and weather the storm and get to grips with it. But we never really did that. So it was such a disappointment. He finally concluded when asked about struggling to break the team down and how much it's down to confidence. He said, look, I don't have any doubt in our ability to break them down. But obviously we have to play a little bit differently to how we played in this game. Not just with the ball, but without it. We've got to be a lot more aggressive than we were during this game itself. We were lacking aggression in everything we did. We were a little bit hesitant with the ball, hesitant in our pressing, and we can't be that way. If we address those things, I'm sure we'll be in a position to at least cause them some problems that we didn't in this game. It's only 1-0, so I guess that's the positive, that we didn't let the game get away from us. So that's Ange Postecoglou's words there. Look, we are going to squeeze in our first break of the show for our listeners on audio. Adam, I want to come over to you. As you can imagine, after that defeat, like there's been many times this season after cup games, there's a lot of question marks that have been turning to Ange Postecoglou. Look, whilst I've sat here all season said for me, it's not all on Ange Postecoglou. I think we've also agreed off air that the mentality comes right from the very, very top of the football club. I don't think any way you can defend the players with the way that they perform in some of these big crunch games. What is it, Ad? Is it a case for you that the manager isn't getting the best out of the players? Is it a case that this is on the players themselves for not being good enough? What is going wrong here, Ad, when it's another big game that we just simply don't turn up in?
I think when Marlon was talking, I got up the article that you've just read out of Ange's comments, and I've got them up here. It's that same thing, and this is a rinse and repeat for Spurs over I don't know how many years. You know, we didn't really come to grips with the right mindset to tackle an away fixture in Europe. How many times in really big games have we heard the mindset wasn't quite right? The mindset, and for me, that is two things. Well, it's two or three things. It's a combination of everything. Firstly, it's the mentality from the top. Secondly, you know, it has to come to the manager because he sets them out. But thirdly, the players. You know, the players are going out there themselves on the pitch in a cup game, and they've got to put in performance. But you know, when you mention things like we've got to be more aggressive, when you sit there and you look at the midfield and the attack that started. Bentancur, Bergvall, Maddison, you know, Johnson, Tell, Son. None of them are aggressive players. None of them put in a crunching tackle. None of them really run around and, you know, press really hard. We haven't got those players. And there's been a theme all season since the very first game, the second half against Leicester, where when we got under a bit of pressure and we crumbled. And it's been a theme all season. When it comes to it, under pressure, we crumble. And that is a combination of got a lot of young players who are inexperienced, and then actually our experienced players don't turn up actually in the big games. Bergvall, you know, I think Marlon said it, is the only one. I thought Spence was okay, but I thought Bergvall, he scored an own goal. He's a young lad. He's not scared, you know, to take the game, but you know, Son, big games, rarely turns up, hasn't turned up for ages. You know, big games that you want your captain there. You know, Maddison, like they're the ones. They're meant to be the leaders, and we're just lacking that. And you know, ultimately the buck will stop with the manager, and he will probably get sacked. But you know, the players are out on the pitch. It's up for them. It's up to them to show the desire on the pitch to want it. Glenn Hoddle was talking about it in the commentary, talking about how, you know, the players, they're all playing safe. They're not taking any risk. They're playing the easy ball. They're taking an extra touch. I doubt Ange's saying how that's probably a confidence thing, but that's also the confidence in the players and their mentality. And, you know, and yeah, I don't know how you change it. I mean, I can't remember. You know, the last 4 or 5 managers have all said the exact same thing about the club and about the squad of players at different times. And ultimately, for me, that comes down to what we've spoken about before, the mentality from the top. And we never buy established good players. We always buy youngsters with potential or whatever it might be. And therefore, you never have the winners on the pitch.
Yeah. And, you know, I've known you for like the last 7-8 years. I always consider you to be a fairly moderate person that is willing to always be able to look at the bigger picture. Where are you on Ange Postecoglou for you? Because I know you're someone that's willing to always be giving someone time. Have you seen enough for you to suggest this can work beyond this season? Can you see anything?
No. I think, you know, I think I was prepared to give him this season. I got pelters early on, and I was just like, only because I'm bored of the second it always goes wrong, we just lump somebody off and sack them. Our problems are bigger than Postecoglou. Our problems will always be until Daniel Levy changes the way we run the club, how we buy players, what we do, and everything to do with that. Nothing will change, whoever the manager is. And that's not to say that Ange is the right guy. I don't think he's the right guy. You know, he's not the right guy. But until we change how we buy players, the types of players we go for, and so on, and the mentality of the club changes. You know, even Amorim the other day got pelters because he goes, our ambition for Manchester United is to win the league. That's where we want to be as a club. That's his, you know, and that's Manchester United, even though they're crap at the minute like we are. That is them. We want to be, whereas us, ours is always like unbelievable Champions League and try and win a cup. And that's it. And that's the mentality of the club.
Yeah. I mean,
unless all that changes, nothing will change.
Yeah, I mean, look.
Sorry, you just said you just to go back to your point. Like you said, you know, where are you on it? I said this before. I'm so disinterested. Like I didn't even know we were playing Man City until the day before. I said to you, I didn't know we had a game, and Friday I checked it. I don't care. I sat at the City game, I sort of shrugged and just left. And I was like, I don't know why I'm here. It's crap. I couldn't care less. I mean, I care, but I don't care. I'm just like, okay, whatever.
I know. You know what? I've never known a season where I know so many Spurs fans can't wait for it to be over. The problem is, though, you've still got no confidence it's the same people in charge that anything's going to massively change, Ed. Do you know what I mean? We're just stuck in this kind of hamster wheel at the moment. Honestly, I love and feel for our supporters so much, and I think that's the toughest thing right now. You know, when like fans like you are going to the ground, season ticket holders that are so, like I say, right now, so detached where things are. It's so tough. It really, really is. I mean, look, and I will come back around here in a second because I know there's a lot more to say on this. I mean, Pat, let's be real about it. I know you wasn't ever really massively keen on Ange Postecoglou, but I will qualify that and say that, look, I think you have got behind him as much as you can get behind him, despite what we have seen over the course of the last 15, 16 months, which within that we saw that obviously great 10-game run at the start. Many would argue that we've never seen it get to that point ever since really his reign. That's been decimated by injuries twice during that period. We have had current at the moment, he's got a 36 win percentage, Ange Postecoglou, which does put him in a bracket as one of the worst Spurs managers we've ever had in the modern era. I think we've come to this point now, Pat, and many might like me saying this, where they're not going to sack him between now and the end of the season, unless we do go on, I think, a horrendous run and would lose 4 of the next 5, 4-5-0. I just don't think the club are in a position to once again give it to Ryan Mason or a la Matty Wells to the end of the season. I really think they're going to try their absolute best to ride it out to the end of the season. And I jokingly said, look, I said a couple of weeks ago that I wouldn't have been surprised if Ange Postecoglou starts next season if he does take Tottenham quite far in the competition and he does stabilise the league form. But again, it's only the first leg. We've still got a second leg to come in this. We can turn this game around, but is the worry for you, Pat? I think you said it in your kind of initial briefing there when you mentioned Ange, that is it the lack of development you've seen of players? Is that maybe the biggest thing for you? Because I don't like always comparing back to other managers, but there's always a period during a manager's reign at a club where you look and reflect on kind of where they've taken players to and from. And this might sound really, what's the word I'm looking for now? It might sound really harsh me saying this, but players for me, the likes of Spence, Bergvall, Gray, Vicario, I think these players have improved purely because they're playing more games and purely because they're actually good players. You know, I'm really struggling, if I'm going to be honest with you, to name you 3 or 4 players that have really improved, I feel, from a coaching perspective. And that's why I really struggle with Ange Postecoglou. You know, I've said it often on this show. I've never put the blame on Ange for everything because I've always said in my mind, he's never been given the players that are going to fit his system to work. And that's why I've allowed that in terms of giving him some, distance there when it comes to really judging him. But do you think, Pat, can we get to a stage where we can just get to the end of the season and just have holiday away from this?
Yeah, I think like when I think about Ange Postecoglou, when I talk about Ange, I think everyone knew my take on Ange Postecoglou from the beginning. I didn't really think he was qualified and basically skilled enough to take the Tottenham job. I thought it was too big of a job for him. I wasn't impressed with his CV. I wasn't impressed with how he set himself up in the big games, especially away from home against better opposition. Knowing that Celtic and the teams he typically managed were the better teams in his respective leagues, I thought coming to Tottenham, we're obviously considered a decent team, a big team, but there's a lot of better teams than us. So I was worried in that respect. I was also worried about his age and his profile. And, people say, oh, I'm being ageist, but realistically, for a manager of his age, he should have come in with a better pedigree. But with all that being said, he was appointed. I said I'd get behind him, and I did. And obviously the first 10 games were fantastic. And I had so many people, oh, what are you saying now? This, that, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, cool, okay, humble pie. So far, he's proven me wrong. The first season was decent, finishing 5th, considering everything that happened. You can say
Harry Kane.
Yeah, you can say that's a good season to begin with. Maybe, that's the foundation and you move on. But there was also a lot of red flags. There was also a lot of concerns within that first season, as people will know. Then you come to this year and it's been an absolute calamity. It's been just disastrous. And obviously a lot of fans and people that wanted to back Ange have now got to the point where, they're just fed up. the thing is, for me now, obviously there's no point sacking him. I know, and I think we should have sacked him a long time ago. We haven't. It's Europa or bust. I think, and the reason why I was so positive, and Marlon was obviously bantering me about my tweets and stuff, is because what else as a Spurs fan do I have? If I can't get behind the fact that we could possibly win this competition, then what is the point? Do you know what I mean? You've got to have something to look forward to. We're 13th in the league. We're out of all domestic competitions. There's no way we're finishing in the top 5.
Yep.
This is it for me. So, but then if I be realistic and I look at how we played so far, realistically, we probably wouldn't win it. But then I look at it and I get sucked in and I say, all our players are coming back. We've got some quality players. Hopefully, Ange would have learned something by now. And you think of all these factors and you think, maybe this is our year. The fact that we've been so crap domestically and this and that, and it's like the perfect storm. Everyone's coming back at the same time. Hopefully, Ange can get it right. Hopefully, Ange can be not as stubborn. Hopefully, the players can step up in the crunch moments. And you just think maybe, just maybe this is our season. But then, you see a performance like today again, like there should be no excuses now. We had more than enough firepower to beat them. We had more than enough players there. And I just look at what Ange, I don't think the starting lineup was wrong. But I also think that when you see that first 45 minutes, you put a rocket up the players' asses and you tell them to get out there and put some tackles in, man. Win some second balls, show some more desire, actually get the ball in the box, actually take some shots. I think the first shot I saw in the second half where I said, you know what, I'm not mad at it. It was when Bergvall took a shot and it wasn't great, but at least it showed some intent. I didn't see nothing. And I don't understand why Ange isn't screaming at the players, Sonny, Madison, some of the players, like take some authority, take some ownership, take some lead and charge. And, you see them soaking at the end of the, or, when they get subbed off. But let's be fair, these guys did absolutely nothing. And it's the same story every single week now. And I just don't understand what's going on, man. The players aren't playing for the manager. The manager isn't managing a situation. And we're just in this nothingness at the moment. We're just sleepwalking to our pathetic season. The thing is, it's frustrating because there's still the chance to actually have a magical season. Yeah, like if we could win the Europa League and, win major honours, qualify for the Champions League.
It kind of feels, Pat, do you not agree, Pat? It kind of feels like a cheat code. We could end up in the Champions League next season.
It's mental and it's there for the taking. When I look at the teams left, I know none of them really, I'm like scared of them, let's be honest. But then also when I look at how
I'm just scared of ourselves.
Yeah, that's the problem, isn't it? That we should be putting fear into the opposition teams now.
We're crap.
I know.
That's the problem. They're not scared of us.
But then when you look at the other teams, Adam, they're not good either. So the problem, that's what frustrates me. I just hope that we can get it together. But, it's the hope that kills you. So it's so frustrating, man, because I feel we're close, but we're so far away. But Ange was never the man. And unfortunately, I don't think he is. And for me as well, you can learn, innit? Like you could be given a job and you're like, whoa, this is way over my pay grade, or I'm not qualified for this. But you up your game, you do your homework, you really train yourself outside. I just don't see this guy really doing that. I think there's a difference between arrogance and confidence. And I think this guy's so arrogant that he doesn't actually see what's happening in front of him. That's for me the problem.
You know what, though? I think for me,
Ricky,
the problem I've got... Go ahead, come back in. We'll go to Miles. Go for it.
Yeah, no, I was just going to jump in, because when Pat was talking, I've just read Son's interview. And if I could just read it out and tell me how many times I've heard Son say this. He said, right, this was nowhere near the level of the performance in terms of how we should perform. And it's very disappointing, including for myself. It's a big wake-up call ahead of the biggest game of the season. It's tough playing away from home. We're sloppy. We're not performing. Everyone's disappointed and we have to look at ourselves. No excuses. It was nowhere near good enough. It's like, how many times have you read that or heard that exact statement in a big game from Son and from other people? It's ridiculous.
It's the same interview. It's the same interview, copy and paste from the last 4 or 5 seasons he's been in every big game that we've had and we've failed him. It's,
embarrassing.
Slavery now. Yeah. And before I do come back round to you, I mean, Miles, look, many out there have kind of resigned themselves to the fact that we've just got to get to the end of the season and have holiday. I'm at that point where I need holiday. I mean, I just, honestly, it's been such a testing season. I know many look at this show and need this show for therapy. And what I would say is, I mean, back on the manager for me, that I think the job, has become different to maybe what Ange may have expected. We brought in a lot of young players. I look at the job now and it really is for me about a coach that is kind of renowned for getting the absolute most out of a group and actually, in a way, developing it, coaching it. And I don't mean any disrespect to Ange, but I look at Ange, and for me, wherever he's been, and look, he may have been given some young players in the past, but I think Ange relies solely on a group that have got a certain caliber in the way that he wants to play. And I think the problem is now that with the squad Tottenham have assembled under him, I don't think there's enough players there that can play the way he wants to play. And I also will qualify that and say that I also don't think in the summer the club would actually be prepared and willing to give Ange Postecoglou the players that he would need to be able to play the way that he wants to play, even if it was over the course of 38 games, or dare I say, again, having to try and compete in competitions. You know, the end of the day is for Tottenham that they decided to go into the start of the season, let's be honest, underprepared. And again, in January, we left it very, very late to give the manager some options where games had already foregone us that had we given him some options at the start of the window earlier, we may have seen an upturn in results. And look, I think Ange Postecoglou, like many other Spurs managers that I've said in the past, for me, and it's just my personal opinion alone, I think he's been failed by the football club. And that's why I've never, ever gone full in on Ange Postecoglou, because whilst many can criticise the win ratio, which is poor, whilst many might criticise his tactics, whilst many might like his interviews, I think Ange is the same of a lot of the managers that have gone before him, when they've been dealt a very, very bad hand in terms of the tools they've been given to do the job. And I just feel, as I've said on so many occasions now, people are probably sick of hearing me say that, until something fundamentally changes at the top of the football club, we will be here under the next manager discussing the same problems with the same players, because the reality is that it's very hard for a club like Tottenham right now to attract the top quality players when, with all due respect, we haven't won anything for such a long time. So do you feel, Miles, it's just a case of trying now just to get to the end of the season? Because I said it earlier, I think unless Tottenham go on a horrendous run in the next 3, 4, 5 games and would lose quite considerably heavy, I think Ange Postecoglou is here until the end of the season. And look, I think there's every chance that we can hopefully turn next week around. It is only a 1-0 scoreline. But what I would say, again, to those fans out there, only been a 1-0 scoreline, it's the manner of the performance, Miles, that we have seen time and time again in the crunch games, right?
Yeah, but Ricky, we kind of, I know we're looking at the board and whatnot, but to be 13th and look at the season, other managers have had their hands tied behind their backs that we've had, and it's not been as bad as this. Look, I'm not fully Ange out, but I can clearly see everything that's going wrong right now within the club and everything that's going on. The one thing that I will say is Ange's coaching staff is the biggest problem for me, because they're not at a level that should be for a team aiming for a Champions League. Mason, Wells, all of them. And the reason why I say that, I look at someone like Harry Redknapp, who had Jordan and Bond, good coaches. Look at Conte, he had good coaches. You look at Mourinho, he had good coaches. And they were able to coach and make certain players better. No matter if we liked them or not, the coaching staff that these managers had behind them was so much better than the riffraff we've got now. And you can clearly see that, because you've clearly just said, Ange about the coaching, and then no one's really seriously got better, and it's only the players that have been playing. But a lot of this is down to what the coaches are doing from what they've been doing for the last 8 days. I looked at that performance today.
Even on set pieces, we consider again another set piece.
A set piece, and you go, what are you doing? And I've said this from day one. The one thing I was really worried about was not Ange as a manager. I was worried about what his backroom staff coming in. And at the time, he only wanted to bring one. And I always said, well, that means you're starting from scratch with the backroom stuff, and they've now got to learn your way. So it's not just you learning how the Premier League works. Your coaching staff have got to learn how you want to then portray it. Then we've had coaches come and go as well in the summer. So it means they're coming up, and then they've got to try something different. So this is always going to be Ange's problem when he gets to a certain level, because it's okay when you can do it in certain places because you've got time to react and you've got time to do. But the Premier League is an unforgiving league. And so is Europe. And those are the two competitions right now where there are better coaches, there are better managers, where, you start to see that it's Ange's not being able to get to a level. Because when we win, the games we've won this season, apart from the last 3 or 4, but let's go back to the beginning of the season when we were win-loss. We were beating teams 3 or 4. So you can clearly see there is something there. The problem is when we're losing the 1-0s and we're scraping wins, not turning up against Palace, there were so many games we didn't turn up, and then the injuries happen, and then you just clearly go, what are they doing from game to game for not being able to kind of improve what's going on? And that's why, for me, in the summer, it's not really about Ange. I really hope this coaching staff is gone, and whoever the next manager is brings in a top quality coaching backroom staff who can improve players, who can work on the training ground, who can work on things, because you can clearly see that this lot we've got right now have not been up to it for the last 18 months. And for me, Ange is like a bit like Harry Redknapp. He's the guy that gets him in that change room, builds him up, and gets him to go out. But the rest of the coaching staff are meant to deal with what's going on the training pitch. And there's clearly a disconnect between the two, or there's a disconnect between the manager and his coaching staff, because something is just not right overall. I can't really blame. I can blame the board for a certain amount, and I'm against the board. But for the performances that we're seeing tonight, is not on Levy. Yeah. That is down to the coaching staff and Postecoglou not being able to get them players up for a game that they clearly said after Manchester City in the lineup we saw that this was the important game. And Son's statement there, another important game. I'm sorry, what are we doing here? What are we doing here as a club? And that's all. And I can't really say much more than that, because unless it changes dramatically everywhere, we'll probably be coming here in a year's time with the exact same thing. Yeah, and it's the players. The players are so important to this.
Go ahead.
The point about coaching is an interesting one, right? Because I remember when Ange joined, he said, I'm going to bring new coaches in. I like to change my coaches and stuff like that. And even then at the time, I thought, when have you ever seen a manager do that? They always bring their coaching staff that they've worked with for years. But actually, the other thing, I think you mentioned Redknapp. Redknapp was on TalkSport a few weeks ago talking about Spurs. And he said, Ange stands on the touchline. No one ever goes and talks to him. No coach ever goes up to him. Like, you always see other teams, you see the coach and the manager talking. He said there's no conversation with anybody about anything. No one goes and says, what about this, what about that, and so on and stuff like that. So
it's so weird. And that's why I said his in-game management is at zero. Like other managers, when Pep Guardiola concedes, he talks to his assistant, they watch it, they re-watch the tape, they converse, and then they say something to a player. I've never seen Ange coach a player in a game. Like, as much as we made jokes about Emerson Royale and so on, Conte was coaching him and getting the best out of him. When have you ever seen Ange coach a player and get the best out of them? He's a crack coach, man. I'm sorry, he is. I just hope and pray that we can. But he's awful. He's so bad. How can a man stand there for 90 minutes with his hands folded and just watch us week after week be so rubbish and not try and change anything?
I said it after the Man City game. You know, that was like a real sort of alarm bell moment for me, where you know, against Man City, Son, Spence, and Kulusevski were coming on the hour mark, and it was like virtually on the dot, and it was like it was a pre-planned. You three are coming on because I'm bringing you in the hour. But actually, at that point in the game, we were all over Man City and playing really well. And then he made 4 changes because he'd written it down that they were the 4 changes he was going to make on the hour mark. And it completely disrupted the whole game. There was no reading of the situation. What's going on? Do I need to make 4 changes? Shall I make 1? And so on. And he made 4 changes, which was effectively half an outfield team. And he completely disrupted the whole game. And we went completely flat after that. And you say, Pep would probably think, okay, I want to bring these guys on after an hour. And then he would say, well, actually, I'll do 1 now or 2, whatever it might be, because of we've got the ascendancy and stuff like that. And you're right, you just don't sort of see that. Rarely do our subs make a difference. We just swap like for like and nothing changes.
I also think, you know, we lost the ball 46 times in that game in dangerous areas of the pitch. You know, no team can lose the ball on that amount of occasions. And Troy Parrott, I've got to be honest with you, Troy looked really good during that game. He looked really good. And you question, you know, letting a player go like him. Look, you never know what might happen in football. But I mean, is it a case that, look, just to be kind of very bare and brutal here, that these players don't fit the system they're being asked to play? And I think something I need to obviously make it very, very clear is that could another manager do much better with this squad. Because I've also maintained the point for me that whilst again I've defended Ange in certain areas, but I don't think Tottenham, even with the players that are available, should have been 13th, 14th in the league. I just don't think they should have done. I mean, I appreciate when we had that 9 to 12 week period of the injuries that we had and the decimation, I totally get it. I feel the performances that we had in terms of the players available should have been better. I appreciate players are tired. I appreciate that he had very limited options in terms of being able to rotate and change. But should we really be 13th in the league with regards to the options that he's had? In your opinion, should he be getting more out of the squad?
We should. Do you know what? I don't know. Sometimes I think yes, sometimes I think no. And I sit there and everyone's like, this Tottenham team. And I went through it at the beginning. Okay, Son looks finished, sadly. Okay, Johnson, I just read his stats. He gave the ball away 13 times today. If Johnson doesn't score, he literally does nothing in a game.
This is a problem. This is a big problem with Johnson.
Literally zero.
But then scoring is the hardest thing to do in football when he does it. But what is he doing apart from scoring?
I think when Solanke and Kulusevski are in the team, I think we are a significantly more dangerous team with those two in it. I think when you take them out of it, those two, I think we are limp. You know, as I said, I really like Bergvall as a young kid, but I said that front six, Bentancur, Bergvall, Maddison, Johnson, Tell, Son. I mean, is it that good? Are they really top players? You know, they're all okay, pretty average.
Yeah.
I think, and again, you know, the same thing. You know, we're so easy. We're so open. Would another manager do better? Yeah, if another manager had a proper number 6 defensive midfielder who could put his foot in, that would help. And another manager probably would do a bit better, like a decent manager, because they're not that bad. They're not as bad as they're showing at the minute. They're just a bit limp, lost confidence, and maybe the manager's also clueless as well.
It's hard. I mean, I think body language is a massive thing, isn't it? I mean, Miles, coming over to you, the body language of some of the players that are on the touchline when they've come off, the likes of Son, Maddison. I think you said they were conversing there, and I know you said
when they've both been crap as well, though. That's the thing; they've both been crap.
Yeah,
and they're coming off shaking their heads.
Yeah, I mean, look, we're not body language experts, and also we're not. Whereas I think Marlon said it earlier, we can't guess what they've said, but I mean, they're facing the players that aren't happy from what they're seeing. And look, we are 1-0 down in the cup tie. I mean, do we think Marnie's got the ability to galvanise the players for the second leg?
Well, he subbed off his captain, subbed off his second captain, and he left his third captain on the bench. So, good luck. These are meant to be your dressing room guys. Look, we're good enough to win at home. Don't get me wrong. We're good enough. It's not
AZ. Can I just say? Yeah. I didn't think they were fantastic. We gave them a lot of opportunities during that game. You know, we
gave the ball away how many times? Of course.
46 times in dangerous areas. But we're not playing against, with all due respect, a perennial super giant in AZ. You know, they're a competent European side. Don't get me wrong, but coming out home in the second leg with the fans behind the team, we should get the result. But I mean, again, you said it earlier. You know, we can't get carried away.
Because and I'm being all serious, because if they start any way they started tonight,
I know.
It's going to be that stadium, like the people's going next week and they'll be like, oh, here we go again, and they're gonna get on the back of them because they've seen it all season. And it's not like our home record has been absolutely brilliant. So I'm looking at the European home record going, it's been better than our league. However, these players have now got to get themselves up, but you should have got yourselves up for tonight. So, so next week I'm expecting a different result. I just don't know which Tottenham's going to turn up next week, and that's the biggest thing. And I agree with Pat. Everyone in this Europa League, if we're on our day, or not even on our day, if we turn up and want to be the Tottenham Hotspur and Ange ball that we have played before, that we have seen, we can beat them. The problem is that them days are very few and far between. So we're getting a lot of these performances that we're seeing tonight. And look, we'll probably limp against Bournemouth on Sunday. You know,
he's going to have to make changes, isn't he? Because
he's going to have to
I
make changes.
don't know what you do now.
But in this situation, do you? Because they've just had 8 days off and couldn't play. So do you just go with what you know and try and get their confidence up? Because at this present moment, even I'm not even sure what I want him to do on Sunday, because resting them clearly doesn't work. He needs to probably, at this present moment, go with the team that he wants to play against Alkmaar, because they look like 11 strangers tonight. And that was the worrying thing. They looked like 11 strangers, considering most of them have played through every 3 days. It's not like he brought Romero back and Van der Ven and it was and Solanke back. He didn't bring none of them back. All these boys have been playing for the last 2 or 3 weeks, apart from Tell, really, and Dadso's been playing. So I'm kind of looking at it going, is Decky that much of a miss? Well, obviously, yes. This is why Decky plays every single week, because he's the one who makes this system work and tick. And you can clearly see now, tonight, when we were trying to get on the ball, yes, Kulu gives the ball away much more than others, but it's because he has to be in this system and it has to work around him. Otherwise, you're just looking at the rest of the team going, what are we doing? The fact that we had one shot on target is clearly, and was it even a shot? I'm not even sure. Odobert,
more of a miscue, wasn't it?
Yeah, it looked like he miscued it and it hit it at the keeper. And I'm just looking at this team going, what are they doing? And that's my biggest problem right now. And I can't see. Look, anyone who's Ange out could probably say they shouldn't be as mad, because they could probably see this performance coming. But if you're Ange in and you really think that Ange is the man, it's kind of you should be mad at this performance, because because you've said he needs the rest, he needs his rest.
You've had 8
days, which he's been moaning for.
And AZ have played twice during that time.
Yeah,
and we've conceded a set piece.
And it's just like, what are we doing here? And this is the problem with Spurs. What are we actually doing? So I'm looking at it going, yeah, we could win it, but I don't know. It depends on what Tottenham's going to turn up. And I think everyone's in the same boat.
Yeah,
we know we can beat them. It's just whether the guys next week they look at this week's performance and actually have a reaction.
Yeah,
but
I mean, look,
it's down to the manager and the coaches at the end of the day as well. They've got to play some part in this. Because
I can only go so far. For the avoidance of doubt, someone in the chat called me an Ange sympathiser. I am absolutely not an Ange sympathiser at all.
Listen,
show balance.
I've tried to be sympathetic all season when it comes to the plot of any manager that's been at Tottenham. But I've also said at the same time that, to have 18 losses in all competitions and we've just hit March.
How many games have we played? Because I heard that before when I was out. How many games have we actually played this season? Does anyone know?
Premier League alone. What we played in the Premier League? We've played 27 in the Premier League, and then what we're looking at another. Well, we played 8. Didn't we play 8 games in Europe to begin with? So you're looking at what? 18 defeats out of a potential 40. Well, it's nearly half, 40, isn't it? It's
50%.
Nearly half. Nearly 50% we've lost the games. You can't have a ratio like that as a Tottenham manager. Whatever you think about Tottenham as a football club, and people might laugh and joke, for the squad that we've assembled, we shouldn't be losing over half the games. And that's despite, having a decimation of injuries twice in the couple of seasons that we've had. And now, again, with that, there's a big question mark as to where and who's responsible for those injuries. To have a 36% win ratio as the Tottenham head coach, it isn't good enough. It isn't good enough. Well, I think the players that he's got there, and I've always said this, I think at the same time, there is a sense of feeling at Tottenham where it's I think Tottenham's a real blame culture. There is a real blame culture that they're quite happy for the manager to take the responsibility and pile it all on him and hide behind. That's why, again, I've never, ever been, if I'm going to be honest with you, at a point where I've actually wanted to, tear into Ange on an abusive basis. Because not only I'm not like that as a person, but at the same time, I can recognise where this isn't all one man's doing. I don't think Ange Postecoglou wanted all the players that he's been given. I think he would have wanted more experienced players. He's alluded to that really since he's been at the football club, that they need that. But at the same time, we are just stuck in what I've described as almost that kind of Mike Ashley hamster wheel, where until something changes, nothing is going to change. Look, we're going to squeeze in our next break of the show for our listeners on audio, in which you're going to hear from Heung-Min Son, as Adam brought that interview there, And Marlon very kindly, just as we go into this next break of the show, has given me the overall stats of the season. And just in terms of Ange's record over the course of the season, which isn't pretty at all. Marlon, thanks so much for that. So that record for Ange Postecoglou in all competition stands at, we've played 43 games, we've won 20, we've drawn 5, and we've lost 18. So, yeah, I mean, you're looking at, look, he's not lost as much as 50%, but he's borderline on that. It's not a record that is befitting with a Spurs head coach, no matter what you think about Tottenham and where and who they should be. I mean, as you've been a Tottenham fan for a very, very long time, it's very hard to see him surviving beyond the rest of the season, isn't it? I mean, when you've got a statistic like that, and it's season ticket renewal time soon. My question is really, how do you convince fans that are season ticket holders to renew on the basis of what you've seen so far this season? And I'm talking to at least 2 on this show.
Yeah. I think probably 2 things happen, right? If they get lucky and win the Europa, then people will renew and people will be excited and stuff like that. That will happen, yeah, because it'll be like, oh, right, we're back in the Champions League and we've won a trophy for the first time. So that will, completely evaporate the entire season. Everyone will actually forget about how crap it's been, because we won the cup. I don't think it will happen. I think what is more likely, it wouldn't surprise me if as soon as we go out this cup, he gets sacked if we go out. And then you put somebody in charge, and then, Levy comes out and gives you another statement about
on that
how...
point, as Marlon said, Ad, I mean, we're not going to get any uplift from Mason Wells, are we?
No, I know, but I think, I'm thinking, this is how I think Daniel Levy works. I think he thinks, right, I've got to get people to renew my season tickets, right? So to do that, if you win the Europa, people will renew because people will be excited.
Yep.
If you don't win and you leave Ange in charge, the renewal bit's right at the end of the season, and people will think, hold on a minute, I'm definitely not renewing if Ange is going to be in charge next season because it's crap. So I think it's like you sack him, and then everyone's like, oh, we might be getting a new manager, and that's a bit exciting, and he might leak that we're getting Poch back or something like that, and then everyone renews it.
You do know, Ad, it's the same ball that's got to pick the next manager.
Of course, but I think that it's that, you suck people in, don't you? That's how they do it, right? If you sack him, if he's gone, then you're like, okay, people might renew because they might be wondering who we're going to get, and it's a fresh start and all of that crap. Whereas if Andy's in charge, everyone would be like, can't be asked for this. Yeah.
I mean, it's really difficult.
But sorry, can I just say one more thing? You made that point about the blame culture. I think there's been a few articles in and around the time of the Levy out campaign, and it is symptomatic of that, where you read Daniel Levy and the board feel that they've bought the players, they've spent the money. It's like they're blind to the fact that they think they're actually doing things right and well. Yeah, and they're deluded.
It's tone deaf, absolute tone deaf. Really, really is tone deaf. Like I say, it's been a really, really difficult game to try and come to terms with in terms of the manner of the performance. And look, we do know there's a second leg there for sure. But, let's be honest about it. We're going to have to see if we can really get behind the team in that second leg and try and turn it around. I know many just look, it's a bad day at the office. The problem is that we've seen this bad day at the office so many times that when does it only become a one-off? When you've seen it on so many occasions. Look, Spurs, to be honest, going into the game, they only made 2 changes from, of course, that defeat to Man City, which seems like a long time ago now, but it doesn't in the world of Spurs because here we are again and we're back. He did have, just to be very, very clear, Ange Postecoglou available to him, Romero, Mickey van der Ven, Dominic Solanke back from injury, although just to avoid any confusion, Dominic Solanke ended that game coming off the pitch due to an injury, in which Ange Postecoglou at this point of recording doesn't feel it is that serious, but we will get an update from him ahead of the Bournemouth game. In terms of what Spurs did in terms of those changes itself, like we mentioned, all those 3 returnees were on a very strong bench to be used to the encounter. If you missed the news earlier in the week, Dejan Kulusevski picked up a foot injury, which we understand is going to keep him out until at least after the international break. He becomes the latest of the injury victims, where I think only Pedro Porro so far has escaped any kind of injury so far this season. I'm willing to be told otherwise if that's the case. And continued up front with Matisse Tell, with Brennan Johnson and Heung-Min Son on the either side. The midfield remained as Lucas Bergvall, Rodrigo Bentancur and James Maddison. Djed Spence came in for Pedro Porro at right back, with Destiny Udogie playing down the left, while Kevin Dance and Archie Gray play together in the centre of Tottenham's defence. That team read Vicario, Spence, Gray, Dance, Udogie, Bergvall, Bentancur, Maddison, Johnson, Tell, Son, with a bench of Austin Whiteman, Porro, Romero, Van der Ven, Saar, Basuma, Moore, Odobert, Scarlett, Solanke. It has been 5 weeks since Van der Ven last played, 3 months out for Romero. Pat, just want to ask you, do you feel either Romero or Van der Ven come in for the second leg? Because I would find it very, very strange if they're a risk for Bournemouth at the weekend, even though, look, we still need to stabilise our Premier League form. I just feel like with Van der Ven and Romero, that if you're going to play them, they'll probably be played in that crucial second leg. Is that how you see it, Pat, for you?
I think because both have been out for a while, they should at least get 20 to 30 minutes in the Bournemouth game. Essentially, you might as well use it as like a pre-season warm-up kind of thing, because...
But are you starting them and bringing them off, or are you bringing them on at the end of the game?
I'm bringing them on at the end of the... Well, I don't know. Either way, they need about 20 or 30 minutes in the tank, so you might as well bring them on halfway through the game, or with 20, 30 minutes to go. That way, they're kind of fresh for the AZ game on Thursday, because... in my opinion, both need to start that game. It's crunch time. You need your best players on the pitch. So they need to get some juice and some, some rhythm going. So you play them for about 20 or 30 minutes at the back end of the Bournemouth game. The problem is if it's a tight game and it's a game where we're potentially winning or it's close, does his plan go out the window? But they need minutes because they need to be playing. In a knockout game where you're at home, you want your best players in every position available and on the pitch. Hopefully the Solanke injury is not too bad. Maybe he doesn't get risked against Bournemouth, but we need him to start on Thursday. And you just go down the pitch. Obviously, Bentancur's out, so he'll definitely start on Sunday, and then Basuma will probably step into that role on Thursday, because out of Basuma and Saar, you would probably go with Basuma because he's the more experienced player. I think, if I'm being honest, both Basuma and Saar have been really poor this season. I expected a lot more from Saar, but I think this year, I don't know, you've just not been at the races. The passing's been off, the tempo, the ball retention, dictating play, all the stuff I'd expect to see from Saar at a better or higher level this season hasn't really happened. He scored 1 or 2 decent goals, like against Man United and so on, but I've not seen the Saar that I thought I would see from the back end of last year. But, the thing is, for me, I'm looking at it like this is a chance of redemption for all of these players. Like, there's a chance to really cement your name in glory and, be heralded as a hero. Like Son, this is your chance to get that statue outside of the stadium. Imagine Son staying here for 10 years plus. Basically, he's our league leader in assists in Premier League history. 100 and whatever odd goals, fantastic appearances and performances throughout. This year he's not been great. He's already on 9 assists. If he can just turn it on, this guy could go down as an ultimate hero. So for me, I'm just like, why can't these guys just grab the game by the scruff of the neck? And hopefully, like I keep saying, I'm going to die on this hill. Hopefully they do that on Thursday and we go from there, man. Sunday's a weird one because obviously you want to win every game. Of course you do, especially as we've been so rubbish. But I wouldn't be adverse to like rotating massively. And then obviously you go big on Thursday.
I know actually Marlon said this off air, that the problem is with Sunday is that do you want to go into that game with AZ, if you were to get beaten by Bournemouth, then suddenly you've had 3 straight defeats, and then you consider what's the morale like? I mean, Miles, it's kind of one of those things where between now and Thursday, what does he do in terms of the squad, in terms of the team? What can he do?
Well, the one thing that I'm going to disagree with Pat on, because I think he can do, he can play Romero. Romero can play because Romero's got Argentina coming up. He ain't getting injured anytime soon. So he can sit there and be risked for any chance he gets. It's Van der Ven I'm more worried about, because if Romero goes and gets injured for Argentina, it's not really it's a big miss, but it's not really a big miss because Van der Ven is the one that is very key to this system. And we saw what he done when he brought back Van der Ven last time. So for me, if Romero is going to be fit enough to play for Argentina in a couple of weeks, like he has now proclaimed he is, play him. Let's see how many minutes he's got in the tank, because we're going to need him. We need him for Sunday and we need him for Thursday. Romero, I know he got a lot of flack at the beginning of the season for the mistakes he was making.
Yep.
But for me, I rate Romero highly, and I think he's such a great defender. And I think a lot of the mistakes that everyone said he was making came because of the system issues that we're
100% agree. The way he's having to play.
Because you've seen Dragoshin play there, not been anywhere near what Romero is. You've seen Archie Gray play there, and again, it's not nothing against Archie Gray, even though a lot of people think I have a vendetta against him. It's just not the same sort of caliber of player, and you see what Porro is like when Romero's not there. Everyone was talking about at the beginning and said, I see Porro is good at this, Porro is this, that, and the other. When he had Romero behind him, as soon as he got Dragoshin behind him, Porro was back. Porro was back to not being able to defend or anything. So
it goes back to a lot of what you said though, Miles, as well. I mean, how many players are suffering because of the system that being asked to play? And this is what, again, I honestly
why
think
Spence has been so good, because Spence is actually suited to the system. Your doggy, for me right now, is probably the man I would take out because he's not been good and he's not got to the level he was parts of last year since he had that injury at the back end. He's just not the same player. And at the present moment, Spence is probably in front of him and doing the inverted wing-back role, probably the best out of anyone at him, Porro, as well this season. So I'm looking at that. So I would go with Romero this Sunday. Romero will be a guaranteed start. I'd play Spence has to play left back. Porro has to play. He has to pretty much go with a pretty strong team of what he's thinking that he's going to go with on Thursday. But I do agree that Bentancur's going to come in, and with Basuma in there, he's got to do something, because if we allow Brighton anything that we allowed Alkmaar tonight.
Well, we have got Brighton to come, but it's still Bournemouth.
Bournemouth. I meant Bournemouth. Sorry, Bournemouth. And, do you know what? I've got Brighton in my head, and I'm like,
I know Brighton's worrying you,
but in all seriousness, yeah.
I'm all worried. We've got to go away to Liverpool and Chelsea still.
Yeah, with Areola, and given that Bournemouth have had the rest. I'm kind of looking at it going, if that front three will hurt us if we don't have our best players out there on Sunday.
Yeah.
And if push comes to shove, I agree with Pat. Van der Ven's got to get 20 minutes at some point, but I'd risk the Romero one. I'd absolutely go in and risk it, because you can't have Archie Gray cannot fill in no more. I'm sorry, he cannot do it. It's not and again, people sit there and go, he's played okay tonight.
The kid's played well, but it's not his position. It's not his position either. Why I feel for Archie Gray is he's been playing every position by the one he clearly would want to play, which is a defensive mid, which he might be a very clearly talented player in. We've just not seen it yet.
And risk him there on Sunday. If you reward him for his performances and the job he's done, reward him on Sunday and put him in that midfield for that first 45 minutes. Yeah. And let's see how it goes, because you've got nothing to lose, because it could turn out that him and Bentancur, him and Basuma end up playing well, and they're the ones who get us out of trouble with Alkmaar. He's got to try him in there, reward him on Sunday and put him in that centre mid, because I don't think any fan who's going or who's watching will begrudge him if he plays Archie Gray in midfield on Sunday.
It's interesting, because with you being a season ticket holder, what do you want to see happen on the game with Bournemouth? I mean, how does he play that for you as a fan? Because you're going to be going there and you want to see the team win, but also with Thursday being the bigger game. Yeah, what is right? Is there a right or a wrong thing to do in your opinion? What needs to happen? Or what should happen?
I think the resting players is a bit of a myth, to be honest with you, because I think actually, if you look at it, Liverpool, they don't rest their players too often. They play their first team most of the time. City do. Poch never used to. Teams like to be fluid and get into a flow of playing. And a lot of the players have been injured. So you actually want them to have some sort of form coming into it. I would go relatively strong. I mean, Porro's obviously going to start, because he didn't start. It wouldn't surprise me if he starts Romero and Van der Ven. I wouldn't be adverse to him starting them both. If you want them to play Thursday night, you could. I would start them and look to bring them off after an hour, or you could play Romero one half and Van der Ven the second to give them some time. But you'd probably want them to play together. They've been training for a while now. I don't think it's like when they got rushed back last time. And frankly, I'd rather them play against Bournemouth and see how they do rather than risk them for the first time Thursday and something happened to them. That doesn't make sense.
Well,
So,
I also think on this point as well, I hope you don't mind me asking you this. You know, as a fan, can we really afford to go into the AZ game on the back of 3 straight defeats and the mood at the stadium being on the back of a home defeat?
No, and whenever you listen to players anywhere, when teams are winning, no one cares about being tired and resting. Play. I want to play, want to score on form. It's a myth, as I said. You know, tossing off the Bournemouth game and losing, losing on the weekend, and then hoping that all of a sudden we can lob Romero, Van de Ven, and a couple of other players back in and hope it all comes together. I don't think that makes any sense. I would start a relatively strong team, maybe the team that you want to. You know, the bench looked actually quite strong today, and then make changes. You know, you can bring on Gray and Danso or vice versa and mix it up a bit.
Yeah, no, I do agree. Listen, it's up to Ange to solve that conundrum, but I do think going into the AZ game, I don't think what you want is having 3 straight defeats and trying to raise morale and get the fans trying to get behind the players when you've had that level of results. And with Thursday being, look, I think many will now look at Thursday in the cold light of day, and the media, I think, will bill it as probably the biggest game of Ange's time at Tottenham. He simply has to win it. He has to get Tottenham to progress. Otherwise, it's very hard to see a way in which he'll be in next season. There'll be some saying that, Ricky, I can't believe you even suggested he could still be in next season. You know, again, I appreciate at the moment there's a lot of fans that would like to see a change, but they ain't going to change it, in my opinion, between now and the end of the season. Look, we said about how that game started, and to be fair, I mean, from minute one, you know, AZ got right down either flank of us far, far too easily. And the goal really comes as a consequence, again, from a set piece. And Miles, I mean, you said it earlier in the show, we've had 8 days to have really, you know, been on the training grounds, really get to grips when it comes to training with regards to how we're going to defend. And then we had this moment of madness from Lucas Bergvall where Pierre Koopmeiner's corner found Troy Parrott. He scuffed his effort. It was sliced high into his own net by Bergvall. I mean, look, for those that can see the image, it was, again, he's taking a wild swing of the ball. It could go anywhere. But with the luck Tottenham have right now, it goes in the back of Tottenham's net. I mean, I did see after the game that Bergvall was quick to apologise to the travelling Spurs fans for his own goal. He could be seen holding both hands out and then put them together by his chest. It's almost a form of apology. And at this point, Andy's shaking his head on the touchline. But, you know, we can shake our head as much as we want. It's another goal conceded off a set piece. You could call it a free goal to concede. But, again, we've had 8 days rest. AZ have played 2 games in between. And yet another goal for set piece. We've said it too many times, Miles, haven't we, about how cheap goals we concede throughout the course of these last 16, 17 months.
Of course. And for me, it's why is there a free man at the back post? Why is he able to, with no one around him, put the ball back into our box? And unfortunately, Bergvall, he shapes all wrong. It happens. I'm not going to sit there and blame the guy because after this, he was the only one who made any effort. So why am I going to sit there and blame Bergvall? And Bergvall shouldn't be apologising to anybody. For me, I know he's going to because that's the way he is and that's his character. But if there's any player that can come off that pitch with their head held high, it is probably Bergvall. So don't apologise. Ask your teammates to apologise first before you. Because at the end of the day, it's just one of them things. It's freak. It's just, Spurs are in a situation at the moment where something like that is going to go in against us. But for me, you have to look at how we were set up for the corner in the first place and why we've allowed a man at the back post to get free. That's the annoying thing. How have we allowed it? And you have to look at the coaching. 8 days and we concede from a set piece. Well done, Spurs. Well done, coaching staff. Again.
Yeah, it is baffling when you say that. You know, again, these are things that you would imagine that in training they would identify what the strongest indications are of the opposition they're facing. And look, the worrying thing is it was nearly 2-0 straight after that. Parrott shot comes off Vicario, way too easy for the Dutch side to cut through the defence. I mean, look, if you give it any positive tonight, Pat, you said it in the earlier part of the show. If it wasn't for Vicario, Pat, this could have been a 3-4-0 scoreline. I mean, just how good has he been, Pat, since his return in the Tottenham shirt for you, Vicario?
I think he's been excellent because you have to remember he had about 3 months out with a broken ankle, broken foot, whatever it was. And he come back and he was, kept a clean sheet against Man United. Obviously, against Manchester City was really unfortunate. We lost that game 1-0. And tonight as well, today he's been really good. Unfortunate with the goal. It is a shanked sort of effort that looped in over him. He's not at fault for that, but he kept us in the game. That 1v1 stop by from Troy Parrott, and then obviously the reflex saves and getting down low. I think he's a fantastic keeper. And last year we got a lot of slander from crosses and corners and all of that stuff. But if you look at how he's shaped up and bulked up a bit since then, he's commanding. He doesn't take no shit. Sometimes he does scare me when we overplay out from the back, but I know that's an instruction from Ange. I still don't get that, really. I don't understand why we have to play that way every single time. But him as a goalkeeper, I think he's brilliant. And like I said, when I look through the Premier League and I watch all the keepers, I watch all the games quite closely, I don't really see, other than Alisson, there's not many keepers I'd say are better than him. So he is a top keeper. That they've got that one right, which is brilliant. And he's at an age where you can build around him. But we just need to. There's a lot that needs to be going on, to get the best out of Vicario. But yeah, he kept us in the game. I thought Bergvall was fantastic. He set the tempo well. He was pushing the ball. He was actually trying to create and dictate. Very unfortunate with the own goal, but to be fair to him, and you got to give players their plaudits. And when he did that, didn't make his head drop. He still kept going. He still showed for the ball. A lot of players may have just kind of wanted to disappear. The guy kept going, so credit to him. He's only 18 or 19.
Yeah.
And the guy's still there every day, showing for the ball and trying to make things happen. And I thought Spence as well. Obviously he's not as good. He wasn't as good as he's been in previous games, but I still think he had a good performance, getting in tackles. He was probably the most fouled player on the pitch. He was driving. He was creating problems for the opposition, and he filled in and did a good job at left back. Udogie for me was poor. Odobert was poor. Son was poor. Maddison was okay. Like, there's too many players that are having off games, and when like half of the team are having bad games, that's a concern. One or two players can have bad games, but when 5 or 6 or 7 are having a bad game at the same time, you've got to ask questions. Why is this happening? Tell as well, non-existent and MIA.
Where are you, Pat, on Tell? Because I've been very cautious to criticise a player that's only played 4 or 5 games. And also, let's be honest, he's coming into a side that isn't in great form either.
Exactly.
And he's not played a huge amount of minutes of Bayern. So I've been loath to criticise him, but I can see there's many on social media that are very much kind of gunning for him at the moment. But I mean, where are you?
I want to give him time. I don't want him to be the next scapegoat. Every year there's a new scapegoat. Not every year, every 3 or 2 months there's a new scapegoat. I don't want to be that guy because, like you said, he's young, new league. He's came into a team that's not playing well. He's playing in a position where I don't really think is his best position. He's probably better off on the wing, but he's not going to get that chance with the wingers we got. So it's a tough one, man. You can see him holding up the ball and playing with his back to goal isn't probably his strongest point. So given time, I mean, the finish in the first game was against Liverpool. That was fantastic. Aston Villa, where we lost 2-1. Brilliant finish. So he's got that in him, but it's a loan spell. He's young. He may not stick with us. This might just be a quick 6-month little short stint. Let's see. So
I mean, anyone when he says you've got a chance to get away.
I know, that's it. If he's got a chance to get away,
you'd run, wouldn't you?
And it doesn't go well, what is like for both parties, it'll be like, thank you, you know what, shake hands and we move on. Because if he doesn't put in some good performances, do we want to keep him? And would he want to stay with this when he doesn't even know who the next manager is going to be and how well we're going to play? So I'm not mad at the kid. Obviously, I want to see more from him, but it'd be too harsh to go, crazy on him right now. There's so many problems. It's hard for a brand new kid from a brand new league who hasn't been playing as well. Let's have it right. At Bayern Munich, it's not like he was playing so there's a lot there. So we'll see. The jury's still out for me, but I can't go crazy on him right now.
I mean, Ad, you brought up earlier Brennan Johnson, who seemed to stop marking Parrott from the corner. That led to Bergvall having that wild swing at the ball that ended up resulting in a goal against Tottenham. I mean, look, he offered very little during the game. He had a tough first half. He's trying to hold up the ball with his back to goal. I think he's done it once or twice on the night. But, you look, as I think as Pat, you're also looking for your leaders as well. Maddison, this is the guy that wants to get back in the England squad, allegedly. He struggled to bring anything to the game. It's all very well shushing Roy Keane when you're scoring a tap in from 2 yards. And I get that Maddison's not had terrible stats for the season, but this is the kind of games that I always am frustrated with when it comes to these players. I'm frustrated that when the going gets tough, and you've said it so often on here as well, when the going gets tough and you're going for adversity, Where are the Sons, the Madisons, the Bentancurs to lead us through the difficult moments? They're just not there, are they? They're just simply not there at the moment. They're not. Well, they haven't been there all season.
No, look, we don't have we don't have them. You know, Son is not an inspirational leader. He's not a leader of men.
Yeah.
He's had a really bad season. His head's down most of the time. He's not the guy that you want giving you a bollocking and shouting at you. He's not that type of player anyway. So, you know, and
is it the system, though, Ad? Is it the system, Ad? Is it the system they've been asked to play?
I don't know. I was chatting to some mates about this a little while ago. Maybe, you know, I don't know. Maybe Harry Kane made Son look better than he was for a period of time because Son, you know, Kane and him together were you know, unplayable for a period. The drop off for him has been alarming. It might be the system.
No,
but
you can't say that though, because when Kane was out, Son carried us. He put us on his back. That Champions League run. So I don't know. I don't buy that. I don't buy that.
The Champions League run was 2019. It's a long time ago. I'm talking about the last few years under Conte. You know, those last few years, where Son was electric, but he was making those runs in behind, but it was Kane dropping and playing him in and creating the space. Now he doesn't get that space. I don't know whether it's because he doesn't get the space, because he's now playing out wide. He never makes those runs. He doesn't seem as sharp. I don't know. The jury's out. You know, he hasn't really done anything. But then you sit there and say, well, have we created a chance for him?
No, but he's playing his back to go at most of the time.
So I think he is a player. Odobert, I've watched him a bit. I think he's going to be a dud. I'm sorry. I think.
Do you think that?
I can't. Okay, I know he hasn't played much. I know he's been injured. Yeah. I don't remember. I've watched him, and he's really quick and tricky. Yeah. His final ball, he's never created a chance. Or shot on target.
Yeah.
You know, he's one of those players, you know, flatters to deceive, no final ball. That's what I think he will be from what I've seen of him. He's quite exciting when he runs with the ball, but I've never seen him put a cross in.
No, I mean...
I'm prepared to give him, you know, as he says, young kid, he's 19, he's not played, come to a new league, we're struggling. I'd like to see him with Solanke in the team where he's playing in and around Solanke. Johnson, I think I've said, like he's the most, like he's literally anonymous. I was watching him in the Man City game, and he literally stands by the fullback. The only run he wants to make is that diagonal run in field. Apart from that, he literally doesn't show for the ball. He doesn't want it. And if you've got a front three that's not doing anything, which is what we've got at the minute, no pressing from the front, no tackling, you know, they're all wimps. I mean, look at Johnson.
I think what summed up that first half, I mean, I don't know if anyone saw it, Madison and Son wasted a free kick opportunity, which summed up really.
Oh my God.
What was that? What was that about?
I was just laughing at that. I just literally laughed.
We've had a full week of training.
For 8 days. They've been practicing that for 8 days without the set piece coach that they don't need. I mean, it's just, you know what I mean? Like Marlon's in hysterics now. But it's true. If that summed up Spurs, and all of my mates were just laughing, just like, oh, right, yeah.
Well, I mean, Brent Johnson sliced over an effort over the crossbar in that first half, and like you said, they introduced Odobert for Tell. But I mean, we had to wait until the 87th minute for a shot on target, which was a miscue, really. And in between that, again, Vicario saved us from a low down shot from Poku. I mean, Bentancur, he obviously is now out of next week after picking up that yellow card. A pretty needless challenge with Bentancur. I mean, another one, there's been suggestions that we're going to open preliminary talks over a new contract with Bentancur. Why?
I know you
like him. But you know, when I look back at our midfielder, and maybe I'm wrong to judge it. You know, when you look back at that midfield we had under Pochettino, when you had Eriksen, Wanyama, Dembele. I look at the midfield that we've got right now. I mean, maybe I'm wrong to be. Soft. You can't even compare it, can you? It's
no, and I think for me, like, that's why, like, you need. Sar's the only one, and I agree with the other guys. He hasn't been good this season. He's been poor, but he's the one that's got some legs about him to get about the pitch, which we sort of don't have in that midfield. sort of Bentancur is like, neat and tidy player. Bergvall is a neat and tidy player. He does carry it a bit. Maddison's meant to be the one. There's no like legs in the midfield, like running power.
No.
And that's what we need. And Sar's probably the only one that can do that. Like Bissouma's, I'm not a fan of Bissouma. I think he's too hit and miss, more miss than hit. I mean, look, should Bentancur get a new deal? Don't know. I loved Bentancur pre-injury.
Conte, the season where he got top 4 under Conte, he was amazing. And maybe look again with Bentancur under a different manager, maybe he's a different
with some
player.
legs about him, with some legs around him. If he had some, if he had like people who could like aggressively run like Sarr last season, then all he has to do is give the ball. But there's no legs in that midfield tonight. You watched it and you're like, no one's carrying the ball.
It's hard because I look at the midfield and think they're not good enough. But then I also don't know whether the system is dictating why they're not good enough. Because I don't know whether really, if I'll be honest with you, I don't know whether if you introduce a different manager next season, suddenly that you see a percentage rise in all these players where maybe they're not as bad as what they're showing. The thing with Bentancur is that a lot of people hold on to what you just said. Under Conte in that season, he was incredible that got us top 4. And you're holding on to that Bentancur thinking, right, are we going to see that player again? The problem is that I just don't think we're going to see those players come back to the level they were under Ange Postecoglou. I just can't see it. So then you're making a decision based on surely what's the benefit of the squad in terms of the system. I just don't know. I mean, this is the problem, Miles, isn't it? You come away from games now. I don't know if you agree here, Miles. There's more questions than there is answers. And that's a worry. You're meant to get the answers of the questions during the game, and then you come away and there's more questions than you get answers of every game at the moment. We're not answering the questions.
Again, we're like every week we're coming on and we're asking a different question on the back of another question that we asked a couple like last week, and it's you know what?
I'm asking you now. I'm asking you about Tell. I'm asking you about Brennan Johnson. I'm asking you about Bentancur. I'm asking you about Bissouma. I'm asking you about Son. I'm listing pretty much the whole team. We're asking about Porro's positioning. I'm asking about Adoghi's positioning.
So
I mentioned 8 or 9 players.
Adoghi's been terrible for a year. Adoghi's been terrible for a year.
Yeah.
Is that again where you're asking?
His positional sense is woeful. Yeah,
but this is where it comes to the coaching staff to be working with him to try and get the best out of his position in terms of what
this is where it's a mix, isn't it? Because I take someone like Danny Rose, was never a left back, wasn't very good at left back, and the coaching staff got into him, made him into a left back. So there's sometimes what your coaching staff can do.
Poch, I've never known in my time that I've been going to Spurs a manager that has improved so many players like Pochettino did. And that's your point that you're making, Rick, is how he coached. And that's what I said. We make the same mistakes. Sorry, I jumped in on Marlon. We make the same mistakes whether we've got our full team out or whether we've got no players playing. We make the same mistakes. We get done at the back posts. The ball comes in around the back, or we're attacking and someone breaks away and we've got no midfield.
What I've come to realise is, though, as well, we are talking about, Miles, the same mistakes every week. I'm talking about the same players every week in terms of whether it's a positional sense, whether it's the way in which they've been asked to play. And it's just been a loop of this for the last 15, 16 months.
But this is the problem, because we're looking at it going, all right, everyone else is going, it's the manager, it's the manager, it's the manager. But then you look at some of the players for the last 18 months and you go, well, if another manager was to come in, this is the great question. Are we going to see an improvement from some of them? And I'd probably say 50% of them, we won't see an improvement.
Because they're not good enough.
They're just not. They are not at the level that we... The biggest thing that we throw at the board is that when we go after a player, it's always about wages and consistency. Well, that's the problem that we've got with our players, is that they're not consistent enough. And that's why they command a lower set of wages than compared to what we call the bigger players. Because big players who are getting paid well will command a certain wage because they know they can consistently back it up. Where some of these players you get in out, and James Maddison's a prime example of this. James Maddison is a prime example of why Spurs will probably never be a top club. Look, at the end of the day, when we got him, we all thought what a good signing. But everyone had told us in, out, in, out. You just don't know what you're going to get with James Maddison. And this is the exact problem we're having with James Maddison now, where Roy Keane was absolutely spot on. He said when he comes in the team, he won't, James Maddison won't take the game by the scruff of the neck and get us through it. And he used Tamworth as an example, but now he can use tonight. The Man United game, he didn't even play that well. He just scored. And that was the difference in that game. I remember coming on here and I said,
yeah, you said apart from the goal, what did he really do?
What did he really do? And this is the problem you're now getting with most of this squad, especially our senior players. Yeah. They're not consistently performing week in, week out. Now, I can sit there and say it's probably the system, but I'm not seeing them go out internationally, some of them, and perform either. So what am I doing here? Am I just solely blaming it on the manager? I have got to look at the players as well. And some of the players do need rotating, but unfortunately right now we've got such a mishmash of a squad that you kind of the summer transfer window, I think everyone can clearly see we need two wingers, two clear good wingers, not the Odoberts where they're cheap and cheerful. Yeah. You need two class wingers to play with Solanke like he had at Bournemouth. And then, I don't know if Ant wants one, we need someone who's going to break up the play and so we're not conceding as many shots against us, because that, for me, is a system issue, and that is our biggest problem that we've had all season. You look at most of the games that we're having, and this goes even back to when we beat Ipswich 4-1.
Yep.
Why are we conceding so many shots at our goal? If you're going to concede that many shots, there are teams that are just going to pick you off, and that's what we've seen this season. Teams are just going to pick us off when we're allowing them so many chances in a game. And the same's happening again tonight. We're just allowing these teams to come right through us, and Vicario has to go get man of the match. That's why Kingsley suffered, that's why Forster suffered, and that's why Austin suffered, because there's so many things coming their way because we're just allowing the runners to come through midfield. Then defence is being exposed, and then your wing backs are halfway up the pitch sometimes. You have, I've noticed they're not both of them this time, one or the other, because even tonight there was a bit where Spence got caught out because he was up the pitch being an inverted fullback.
You know what's the issue that we're going to have? Yeah. Mars, every word you've said, I agree with you on there. I mean, the squad has had, since Aaron just come in the job, it's had 305 million spent on it in terms of the squad since Aaron just taken over. And here we are right now. Marlon is sitting there saying that 50% of the players may get an uplift if somebody else comes in, whereas the other 50% might not be good enough. I mean, it's had a huge amount of money spent on this squad. Is it down pat to the calibre of players that have been brought in?
Yeah, this is very misleading because, context is a beautiful thing. And when I look at this, obviously, yes, there's a lot of money spent, but a lot of it is on up-and-comers and potential raw talent that we don't know how good they're going to be. Archie Gray, for example, 40 million spent, but he's never really played in his rightful position. Wilson Odobert, 30 million spent. Is he any good? The jury's out. He's young. He's 19. He's been injured for most of the season. Kinski, I'm sorry, I said it here when he played. Not convinced against him at all. Poor against Aston Villa. Poor against Arsenal. 15 million spent. Yang has never kicked a ball for us. Manor Solomon, 3. But again, what was the point of that? Tell, it's a loan. But again, the jury's out. There's a lot of players here. Dragusin looked good for Romania in the World Cup. Looked good for a little bit when he first come in, but was very, very shaky when he played and had to play ball playing and, had to be consistent. So it's a lot of money spent, but it's a lot of money spent where personally, if I was head of recruitment, if I was a scout, I'll be saying, no, let's go and spend 50 million on Neto, pay the wages, then we have a winger that's ready, can come in and do a job. Again, if we really wanted to be there or thereabouts, we would have put the money down for Gahey from Crystal Palace early in the window, getting a player of that caliber, that ilk, 25, 26, got the experience, and obviously pay the wages. So it's, like you're just basically kidding a kidder when you spend that much money, but it's all on up and comers. And again, look at the players we're linked to in the summer, Diblin, and all these guys that are like 21, 22, 19 that are not really proving themselves. I'm sick and tired of this model because it's always we're buying for tomorrow, but what about today? So
and also the backdrop of all of that though, Pat, as well, is we sold the best striker in the world.
Exactly, that's it. The best striker comfortably. Like the Harry Kane Discord is so crazy. Like the guy's clearly one of the best players in the world. Look at his stats this year. Every year this guy is so consistent. I don't know how he's ranking in the Ballon d'Or.
And then
Sorry,
that's the list.
gone.
Yeah, no, and then that's the list of players that you've then brought in.
That's it. And some of them may be good. Some of them might be good. You know, obviously, like even I'd say in Odobert, I don't know about Odobert either, but it's too early to say. Obviously, Archie Gray looks good, but we've never seen him in his rightful position. God forbid he might play as a 6, have a couple of games, and then the fan base turn on him. So you just don't know what's going to happen with these guys. Sarr again, you know, young. I know that it's before Ange's turn, but again, 20-odd million spent on Sarr. The jury's still out on Sarr, and he's almost 3 years in. So you just don't know with these young players what you're going to get. So for me, the recruitment's it stinks, it's crap. And that's why we are 13th in the table with inconsistent performances, because you're buying so many players where you just don't know what you're going to get week in and week out.
Ricky, get that list back up. Sorry, I just want to see it again. Is there one?
Well, other than Maddison, there's no star there that you would say, yeah, this guy's coming in.
Well, Solanke, they've spent nearly 60 million on Solanke.
Yeah, but even Solanke,
but if you're talking about
on Solanke, isn't it? Really?
Yeah, if you're saying if there's a top established international footballer there, obviously I love Van de Ven and stuff like that, but there's not, is there? You know, the most and the laughable bit, the most established person on that list is probably Werner. You know, which tells you
or Brennan Johnson, to be honest, because he's had so many caps for Wales, but the rest
it's Werner because of the German caps, and Werner's got a Champions League and Werner's got some medals behind him, so it is, and that tells its own story.
Ricky's trying not to laugh at that.
Yeah, it's poor. That recruitment is poor, man. It's poor.
You know, there's
and Van der Ven was a risk. Everyone's going to be sitting there going Van der Ven. Actually, no. When Van der Ven came in, no one had heard of him.
Exactly,
and he wasn't established international.
Most of us didn't want Van der Ven. We all wanted what's his name?
Tapsoba.
Yeah, Tapsoba. Tapsoba was the first choice for most Spurs fans, if we're being honest. Obviously, Van der Ven has come in and fantastic. He's been brilliant, and he has got now, one of our best players. But it was a big risk at the time. None of us knew how it was going to go.
So we've just signed a massive group of kids. There's no experience. There's no
potential.
Top leader and that is why we are where we are, because of that list, like you say.
So guys, that begs the question: the manager or the players?
It's the same, because even a manager,
whoever comes in next to have the same problem. Go on, Pat.
Because I was going to say, even a manager, if we're taking it back to the root, and he's a manager that come in with potential. He's a manager that wasn't proven at the top level. So if you're looking at the players, essentially Ange Postecoglou is the same as these guys. Potential, has the chance to be, a high ceiling, but could also be a bust. And at the moment, he's a bust.
So it's the same, across everybody.
That's it. Across the board, it's the same shit. And that's why we are where we are. It's crazy, but it just goes to show. So when Daniel Levy's sitting there saying, "Oh, I've really tried my hardest," and you haven't really. You've been weak. You've been lackluster. You've been spineless, and you've just gambled. Really, and not really put your money where your mouth is. You charge us so much money, you're making so much money, but this is what you're feeding us with. It's poor.
And the recruitment team always moan about him. They always say that, look, because Pat was saying the recruitment team earlier, I bet you any money they've taken him top quality players, and it's been a negotiation part where it's all fallen down at the last minute, where it's either down to wages or the fee slightly a bit thing, and he's not taking the risk. And you know this because every single, even what's his name, the guy who was in before Paratici, even he's come out and said recently
Steve Hitchin,
he tried to sign De Jong to sign De Jong to replace Dembele. Now we're all looking at going, well, that's great. Oh, but we all know what happened. We know what the end goal is. So it is what it is.
Guys, let me close you on this question. Look, we've got obviously a big week now ahead, even though I feel like this week coming was a big week. We've got Bournemouth and we've got obviously the return leg to come. I mean, Pat, what are we expecting in these next couple of weeks?
Misery.
What do I expect? I don't know, man. I expect us to be
right and disappointed.
I don't know I don't know what's gonna happen against Bournemouth. I really don't know, because I don't know what Ange's gonna do. Does he go big and play the players that he wants to play to get some rhythm, like Ad said, or does he actually rotate massively, thinking it's do or die, and if I lose, I'm out, and I lose my. I don't know. So I'm really confused at what's gonna happen against Bournemouth. But against AZ, I expect us to beat them. and beat them quite convincingly.
And progress.
So, but I don't know. The Bournemouth one's a tricky one. It's literally a spanner in the works because they're actually a really good team.
And Bournemouth will want to win as well.
Bournemouth will want to come and play. And obviously, we're going to have one eye on Thursday. So I genuinely don't know. That's such a tricky one. But Thursday, everything has to be left on that pitch.
Yeah, I tell you, it's going to be tough. Pat, thank you so much. I know these shows are never easy. They are character building. Get your head down, son. We'll see you at the weekend. Miles, am I safe yet to go and book a holiday after match day 38, or do I still need to hold on? I need to get away.
You know what? The day you go away with the day they suck hands and get a new manager in.
Oh my God. I should have waited a week. What's going to happen, Miles, in this next week? What's going to happen this next week?
I'm kind of in agreement with Pat. I think Bournemouth is a bit of a tricky one. I'm not really sure where the result's going to go. It depends on, again, who starts for me. But I really do. And this is no matter what I've been talking about tonight, whether it's Ange and tactics and players and this, I really do expect next week for that team to go out and beat Alkmaar and go through. If they don't, then I'll be back on here next week complaining and be like, oh crap, I was wrong last week.
I tell you, and Mars, I can't thank you enough. I know, again, it's been a really challenging season. One that we had to draft Adam in for the post-match shows where he's only coming into that finance and he's having more of an easier conversations. Now he's coming into the Samaritan on these shows. Mars, we'll see you on Sunday. Ads, we've got to close with you. I've got to say, again, thanks so much for all the support. Over 10,000 have watched the show live. And again, I know it's a really, really tricky situation that we find ourselves in. I know even Ads text me on a match day saying, why am I here?
I did. Half an hour into City, I was just like, I don't know why I'm here. I told you I shouldn't have done.
What's going to happen under this next week or so?
I agree. I think we will. I am actually confident we will win next Thursday. I think it will be a noisy crowd. It will be lively. They will come out.
Fans will get behind the team.
I think Sunday's an interesting one, because those types of games.
Also, you have got Iriola auditioning for the job potentially as well on Sunday. We've not really said that. Is it an audition for the job?
Teams that play open suit us the way we play. It's like, with teams play sort of like quite open and stuff like that. But they're a decent team. Anything can happen on Sunday. I would like to see him go relatively strong. These players have been out injured for a while. They're not knackered. They should be able to play 2 games in a week and 2 big games. I would start Romero and Van der Ven and bring them off.
Yeah. Ads, we can't thank you enough. We are going to probably get you back for the end of the season. Don't look so terrified and sad about it. We will see you very, very soon. Listen, to our wonderful audience out there, thank you so much for your support. Again, I will say this and qualify that I know, look, we've been doing Last on Spurs for the last 7-8 years. Ads was with us back in the audio days. Not that we've aged him too much. Pat and Marlon are fairly newish to the scene. And no offense, guys, look what we've done to them. They've aged this last 2-3 years on this show. It's got to get easier, hasn't it? I keep saying that Spurs fans stop me in the street, and the one thing I keep saying is, it's got to get easier. It's got to get easier. Just when you think you can't fall any lower. Oh, what a football club. We have got no get out. Unlike Matty's tell, we are here for the long haul. We can't leave. He can get away, but we can't. We will be here forever. And we have tied a lifetime contract and we can't get away. I want to say a massive thank you to our wonderful panel, the wonderful Adam Osper. Ads, thank you so much. Like I say, we look forward to having Ads back soon. Pat and Marlon, they've pulled the short shrift. They're back on the shifts on Sunday. Pat, Marlon, we love you very much. Thank you so much. Guys, we have been the last word on Spurs. Oh, things will get better. I promise you. They've got to, haven't they? Keep safe, keep well. And as always, come on, you Spurs.